Evelyn didn't hear the wedding bells, only her groom's rage as she ran for her life. Barefoot, dress torn, her cheek still stinging from the slap he gave her when she said she couldn't marry him. Branches tore at her skin as she ran. Behind her, his voice, drunk, furious. She didn't know where she was going. Only that if he caught her, she wouldn't survive. Then torches, shadows, a ring of armed men stepped out of the darkness. She hadn't found safety. She had run straight into the camp of the enemy. Evelyn froze, breath visible in the cold night air. The men surrounding her were exactly as the elders had described. Tall, broad-shouldered, faces painted with ash and iron. The mountain clan. The people her town barred their gates against. The man at the front stepped closer, torchlight catching on the scar that slashed across his jaw. His voice was low, dangerous. "Who are you, and why is your wedding dress covered in blood?" Evelyn looked down. It wasn't her blood. It was his, the groom's. The man who had tried to force her into a marriage she never wanted. The man whose fingers left bruises every time he touched her. Her throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Another man grabbed her arm. "She's one of them," he said. "Send her back. They attack us, steal from us, poison our water, and now they send spies?" "I'm not a spy," Evelyn whispered. But her voice cracked, and it only made them grip her harder. "Enough," the scarred man said. "Bring her to the chief." They marched her deeper into the camp. Fires flickered between tents. Smoke curled into the starless sky. Every step felt like a death sentence. Then she saw him. The chief was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair tied back, broad shoulders, and eyes so sharp they looked like they could cut through stone. He sat on a carved cedar chair, speaking with two warriors. When he turned to look at her, Evelyn felt her knees weaken, not because he was terrifying, but because he was calm, studying her with a quiet intensity that made the world fall away. "What happened to you?" he asked softly, and for the first time that night, the question wasn't asked with suspicion, but with concern. Evelyn opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her mind was still replaying the slap, the way her groom Eldrick had gripped her jaw so tightly she could still feel the ache. The chief noticed. He stood, walked toward her, and gently lifted her chin with one finger. Her cheek was swollen, his jaw tightened. The men around them exchanged glances, sensing the shift. "Who did this?" he asked. "My fiancé," she whispered. "Why were you running?" "Because he said if I tried to leave, he'd kill me." A heavy silence fell. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then the chief inhaled sharply, the kind of breath a man takes before making a decision he won't back down from. "You're safe here," he said. "You won't be returned." The warrior who'd accused her earlier stepped forward. "Chief, she's an outsider." "I said," the chief interrupted quietly, "she stays." The warrior shut up instantly. Evelyn sagged with relief so sudden it nearly broke her. She felt her knees buckle, but the chief caught her before she fell. "Let her rest," he ordered. "Bring her to the healer's tent." As they led her away, she heard whispers from the camp. "She's one of them, why protect her? The chief never intervenes for outsiders. Did you see the way he looked at her?" But Evelyn was too exhausted to care. Inside the healer's tent, a woman with long braids and warm eyes helped her sit on a cot. "You're lucky it was our chief who found you," she said, as she cleaned the blood from Evelyn's hands. "Most men out there would have sent you back." "Why didn't he?" Evelyn whispered. The healer's eyes softened. "Because he knows what it means to lose someone to a cruel man." Evelyn frowned. "What happened?" The healer placed a warm cloth on her cheek. "His sister married a man from your town years ago. The man mistreated her. She tried to flee, but they sent her back." The woman paused, swallowing hard. "She didn't survive." Evelyn's breath caught. The story hit her like a stone in the chest. The healer stood. "Rest. The chief will check on you soon." Hours later, Evelyn woke to the sound of footsteps outside the tent. A tall silhouette paused at the entrance. The chief stepped inside. "You're awake," he said. Evelyn sat up, pulling the blanket closer around her shoulders. "Thank you for helping me." "You don't have to thank me," he hesitated, then added quietly. No one deserves to be hunted on their wedding day. Evelyn's throat tightened. My people say your clan is dangerous. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. And my people say yours is ruthless. Have you ever met anyone from my town? She asked. You're the first. And I've never met anyone from your clan. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then he said, maybe everything we were taught was wrong. The next morning, the camp stirred early. Smoke rose from fire pits. Warriors sharpened blades. Children chased each other between tents. The chief offered her food, but Evelyn barely touched it. Her hands still shook from the night before. You're safe now, he said quietly. He won't find you here. Evelyn hugged her knees, staring into the fire. He will try. Eldrick doesn't care about anything except his pride. He'll come looking, if only to drag me back and punish me for running. The chief was silent for a long time. Then, let him come. Evelyn's breath stilled. He wasn't boasting, wasn't threatening. It was simply a fact, a calm, chilling truth. Days passed. Evelyn healed slowly. The clan watched her at first with suspicion, but that melted as they realized she wasn't dangerous. Children brought her gifts. Women taught her to braid rope and tend fires. Warriors nodded in quiet respect. But the chief, he was different. He watched her, protected her, listened to her, not with possessiveness, but with patience, like someone who knew what pain felt like and refused to be the cause of more. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn felt something she'd never known. She felt safe, but safety never lasts long for a hunted woman. One night, as snow fell gently over the camp, the alarm horns sounded 3 sharp blasts. Warriors rushed to the perimeter. The chief grabbed his axe and turned to Evelyn. Stay in the healer's tent. Do not come out. What's happening? She breathed. They've come for you. Her heart collapsed. Eldrick, her groom, her nightmare. He had found her. The chief touched her shoulder, locking eyes with her. I won't let him take you. Then he walked into the darkness, toward the line of torches appearing at the forest edge. And Evelyn realized one terrifying, breathtaking truth. The man her people called an enemy had become her only protector. Snow hammered the earth as torches appeared beyond the ridge, dozens of them moving like a swarm of angry insects across the dark tree line. Evelyn's pulse thundered. The chief stepped forward, every muscle in his body coiled, his jaw clenching as the enemy approached. Warriors of the mountain clan formed a protective ring around their camp. Shields raised, blades drawn. A man on horseback rode to the front of the invaders. Eldrick, her groom, her nightmare, his face twisted with fury, red from drink, teeth bared like an animal. Give her back, he roared. She is my bride. She belongs to me. The words sliced through the night. Evelyn flinched as if struck. The chief didn't. He simply tilted his head, studying Eldrick the way a wolf studies a barking stray. She is not your property, the chief said, voice calm. Too calm. And she is under my protection now. Eldrick laughed a harsh, ugly sound. Protection? From you? You're nothing but mountain filth savages, hiding in the snow. The clan tensed. But the chief didn't move, didn't blink. Insults won't bring her back to you. Eldrick's smile curdled. Oh, she's coming back, he growled. And I will make sure she never tries to run again. He grabbed the edge of his saddle, lifted a cloth, revealing a steel collar and chain. Evelyn's knees buckled. She tasted metal in her mouth. This was what he planned. Not a marriage, a lifetime of punishment for disobedience. The chief's expression changed. Not loudly, not violently, just a flicker, a look that promised death. Eldrick lifted the collar in the firelight, shouting for everyone to hear. She belongs to me. She is mine by contract. And if she ran, she must be corrected. Evelyn's breath shook. A memory stabbed through her. Eldrick's fingers digging into her cheeks as he hissed. Run again, and I will break your legs myself. The chief stepped forward. Put the collar down. Eldrick spat in the snow. Come take it from me, savage. Behind him, his men laughed. And something inside the chief snapped. He moved. Not rushed, not panicked. A controlled, terrifying stride. The kind of movement that makes men shut their mouths and reconsider every decision of their lives. Eldrick's laughing stopped abruptly. "Listen well," the chief said, voice dropping into a growl that shook Evelyn to her bones. "She is under my protection. You will not touch her. You will not speak to her. And you will not take another step into my land." Eldrick sneered, but fear flickered in his eyes. "She's my wife." "No," the chief said softly, stepping closer. "She is a scared woman who ran from a man who hurts her." His voice cracked not from weakness, but from memory. The memory of his sister. She chose her safety. She chose freedom. And I will defend that choice with my life. Eldrick's hand flew to his sword. The mountain clan reacted instantly. Blades lifted around him like snapping jaws. But the chief raised a hand. "No," he said. "He's mine." Eldrick dismounted, stumbling in the snow, soaked in arrogance and rage. "If you think she's worth dying for," he snarled, lifting his sword, "then let's spill blood." He lunged. The clash of metal echoed through the valley. The chief blocked the strike with brutal efficiency, sending Eldrick skidding back in the snow. Again, Eldrick charged, wild and messy. The chief sidestepped, slammed an elbow into his ribs, and sent him crashing to his knees. Eldrick coughed, spitting red. "Fight like a man, you coward." "I am," the chief said. "You're just not used to fighting someone who hits back." Eldrick lunged again. The chief caught his wrist, twisted, and Eldrick screamed as his sword dropped into the snow. The chief kicked it away. Now Eldrick was unarmed, defenseless, panting like a cornered dog. The chief leaned down, eyes cold enough to freeze rivers. "You were going to drag her home in chains," he said quietly. "Let me show you what chains feel like." Eldrick swung blindly. The chief caught his fist midair and punched him so hard, Eldrick collapsed face first into the snow. Silence. Then, a soft, broken cry escaped Evelyn's throat. She hadn't realized she'd fallen to her knees. She hadn't realized she was shaking, because for the first time in her life, someone fought for her, not with words, not with empty promises, but with unflinching, bone-breaking resolve. Eldrick groaned, trying to push himself up. His men made no move to help him. The chief crouched beside him, voice low enough only they could hear. "If you ever step foot on this mountain again, I will bury you in it." He stood and ordered, "Leave your weapons, leave the collar, and leave her behind." Eldrick looked up, blood running from his nose. "You can't keep her." The chief stepped closer, towering over him. "I am not keeping her." He pointed to Evelyn. "She chose to run from you. That is enough. Now, take your men and go." The enemy soldiers lifted Eldrick to his feet. No more shouting. No more threats. The torches retreated. Their silhouettes disappeared into the dark. And when their last torch faded, Evelyn broke. She didn't mean to. She didn't want to. But the sob tore from her chest before she could stop it. The chief turned. And the moment he saw her crying, the rage drained from his face. He walked to her slowly, cautiously, as if approaching a frightened fawn. He knelt in the snow, lowering himself to her height. "You're safe," he murmured. "Look at me, Evelyn. You're safe now." She lifted her trembling hands, still stained with dirt and blood. I thought he'd take me. I wouldn't let him." Her voice cracked. "Why? You barely know me." He shook his head, his breath visible in the cold air. "I know enough." He swallowed hard. "I know what it looks like when someone is terrified of going back." Evelyn's eyes stung. He wasn't just seeing her wounds. He understood them, not from rumor, not from guesswork, but because somewhere in his past, he had carried the same grief. "I don't deserve your protection," she whispered. The chief reached out slowly and touched her cheek, where the bruise had begun to fade. "You don't earn protection," he said softly. "You're given it by someone who refuses to let the world hurt you again." His thumb brushed a tear from her skin. "And I refuse." She didn't fall into his arms, didn't cling to him. That wasn't her story. Not yet. But she leaned into his touch just barely. And he held that tiny, fragile movement, like it was the most important thing he'd ever been trusted with. The camp settled long after Eldrick and his men vanished into the storm. Snow hissed in the firelight, and warriors returned to their shelters, glancing toward Evelyn as if seeing her differently now. Not a stranger, not a burden, but the woman their chief had defended with his life. The chief stood beside her in the quiet, the glow of the torches turning his dark hair bronze. "You should rest," he said softly. Evelyn shook her head. "I won't sleep tonight." He seemed to understand without explanation. His voice dropped to a gentler register. "Walk with me." They moved through the quiet camp, boots crunching softly in the snow. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself, breath trembling in the cold. The chief walked at her pace, slow, protective, patient. When they reached the cliff's edge, he stopped. Below them, the valley stretched like a dark ocean, dotted with distant fires from wandering caravans. Snow drifted around them in silent spirals. Evelyn inhaled deeply. For the first time in years, her lungs didn't hurt. "You fought for me," she whispered. "I don't understand why." He didn't look at her, not yet. Instead, he looked into the night, as if searching for the right words. "My sister," he finally said, voice raw, "was married to a man like Eldrick." Evelyn's chest tightened. "He was charming in public," the chief continued, "but cruel behind doors. She hid it from us until it was too late." Silence crushed the snow between them. "When I saw you run from him," he said, "I saw her, and I swore I'd never be too late again." Evelyn felt tears warm her eyes. Not from fear, from being understood so deeply it hurt. She spoke quietly, the words trembling on her tongue. "I tried to leave so many times," she whispered, "but no one believed me. They said I should be grateful. They said marriage is hard for everyone." "You were not hard to love," the chief murmured. "He was hard to survive." Her breath broke. She pressed a hand to her mouth to hold the sob in, but it escaped anyway. And the chief didn't move closer. He waited, giving her space to fall apart without shame. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "I thought he'd kill me one day. I thought maybe that was my fate." He turned to her fully now. "Look at me." She did. His gaze was steady, fierce, unyielding. "You survived him," he said. "You chose yourself. That is strength, not fate." Evelyn absorbed the warmth of those words like a starving creature. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not with pity, but with respect. They stood together in the cold, breaths mingling in the night air. Then the chief's expression shifted, growing, troubled, protective. "You should know something," he said. "Eldrick won't accept defeat. Men like him never do." A chill ran through her veins. "He'll return," the chief continued, "with more men and fewer warnings." Evelyn's stomach tightened. "I don't want anyone hurt because of me." The chief shook his head. "You didn't cause his violence. He carries that on his own." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt his warmth through the cold. "When he comes," he said softly, "I want you somewhere safe." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to hide anymore." The chief's jaw tightened. A spark of admiration lit his eyes. "You're braver than you think," he murmured. "So are you," she whispered. He blinked, caught off guard by her sincerity. He looked away, almost shy for a moment, as if her words reached a part of him he didn't let the world touch. A gust of wind pushed against them, and Evelyn shivered. Without hesitation, the chief unclasped his heavy fur cloak and draped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her instantly, warm, heavy, safe. She looked down at the cloak, then up at him. "Thank you." "Keep it," he said. "It suits you better than me." She didn't know why, but that made her blush. He didn't seem to notice his eyes were fixed on the horizon, tense. Something in his stillness made Evelyn's breath catch. "What is it?" she whispered. He inhaled slowly. "Smoke." Her heart lurched. "Eldrick?" "No," he said darkly, jaw clenching. "Worse." The chief stepped forward, gripping the hilt of his blade. "Another clan," he explained. "They hunt runaways for coin." Evelyn's blood froze. "They track by scent, by fear. If they find he wants you back, they will come." Her knees weakened. "Why me?" The chief looked at her, expression softening instantly. "Because you ran. Because you lived. That makes you a threat to men who rule through fear." He reached out slow, steady, and placed his hand gently at her elbow. "You're not alone anymore." She swallowed the rising panic, fighting to keep her voice steady. "What happens when they arrive?" His eyes hardened like flint. "Then I end this. Not tomorrow. Not later. Tonight? A tremor went through her. Will you win? She whispered. He exhaled, long and quiet. For you, he said, I cannot lose. A horn sounded in the distance low, haunting, echoing across the valley. The chief's entire body went rigid. They found us, he said. Evelyn, stay behind me. Her breath stuttered, but she nodded. Not because she was helpless, but because for the first time in her life, someone wanted her alive more than they wanted control. The chief drew his weapon, eyes burning. Tonight, he growled, we end the men who hunt women. Torches appeared in the distance. 12, then 24, then more. Evelyn's heartbeat shook the earth. The final battle was coming. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath the bruises, beneath the terror, a spark lit. A spark that whispered, this time, I will not be taken. Not alive. Not silent. Not again. The torches grew brighter as the men approached, shadows stretching across the snow like claws. Evelyn stood behind the chief, heart pounding against her ribs. The air smelled of smoke, sweat, and danger. The warriors of the Ironwood clan spread out silently around their chief, forming a protective wall. No one spoke. No one ran. This was a stand they had waited for. Then, a figure stepped forward from the enemy crowd. Evelyn froze. Eldrick. His wedding coat hung open, snow clinging to his beard, eyes wild with drunken fury. Behind him stood the mercenary hunters, scarred men with knives, ropes, and iron chains meant for capturing livestock. Evelyn swallowed hard, bile rising in her throat. Eldrick spat in the snow. There she is, he snarled. Mine. The chief didn't move, didn't blink. Turn around, he warned. You will not take her. Eldrick laughed, a loud, horrible sound that made Evelyn's skin crawl. You think she came to you by choice? He shouted. She's a lying little whore who runs from discipline. She needs a firm hand, a man who knows how to break her in. Evelyn's breath shattered. Shame heated her face, then something hotter, anger. The chief stepped forward once, blade low at his side. You should know, he said coldly. Every warrior here heard what you just called her. Eldrick smirked. Good. Let them hear what she really is. The chief's eyes hardened to steel. No, he said. Let them hear what you really are. A ripple of fury moved through the Ironwood warriors. The snow stilled, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Evelyn felt the shift. The balance tipping, the line being drawn. The chief raised his voice, not shouting, but carrying the weight of law. This woman does not belong to you, he declared. She is not property, not livestock, not something to break. He pointed his blade toward Eldrick. She is under my protection, and any man who tries to claim her dies tonight. A murmur spread through the mercenaries. Eldrick's lip curled. You think I'm afraid of you? I hired these hunters. They outnumber you. Numbers don't make strength, the chief replied. Honor does. Eldrick snapped his fingers. Take her. The hunters moved. Fast, but the Ironwood warriors moved faster. Steel flashed. Torches clattered to the ground. Snow exploded beneath charging boots. The battle erupted in a crack of thunder. Evelyn stumbled back as bodies collided. Weapons clashed. War cries split the night air. The chief was a blur of controlled fury, blocking, striking, protecting the warriors at his side. But Eldrick didn't join the fight. He slipped through the chaos. Eyes locked on Evelyn. Her blood ran cold. No, 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 she whispered, backing away. Eldrick lunged, grabbing her by the wrist, fingers bruising her skin. I told you, he hissed, breath sour with whiskey. You don't escape me. Evelyn fought wildly, nails scraping his hands. But he was stronger. He dragged her away, toward the dark line of trees, where no one would see him kill her. Snow kicked up under her feet as she twisted, clawed, gasped for air. You'll learn obedience, Eldrick snarled. If I have to beat it into you. Something inside, Evelyn snapped. Not fear, not despair, but every moment of survival she had ever swallowed. No, she choked out. Not anymore. She drove her knee up hard. Eldrick roared, releasing her for a split second. Just long enough. Evelyn grabbed a fallen hunter's dagger from the snow. Her hand shook violently. She had never held a weapon before. Eldrick lunged. Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut and slashed blindly. A scream tore through the trees. His. Eldrick fell to his knees, hands clutching his bleeding shoulder. "You little witch." A shadow slammed into him. The chief. He tackled Eldrick into the snow, fury exploding across his face as he pinned the man down. "You touch her again," he growled, voice shaking with rage, "and you won't walk out of these woods." Eldrick spat blood up at him. "She belongs to me." "No," the chief said, blade pressing against Eldrick's throat. "You don't own what you cannot destroy." Evelyn stepped forward, chest heaving. "Let him say it," she whispered. The chief hesitated, then stopped. Evelyn kneeled weak, trembling, but rising inside. "Eldrick," she said, voice soft and shaking, "I don't belong to you. I never did." His eyes flared with hatred. Ungrateful, she leaned closer. "I am done being afraid of you." The chief watched her, every word sharpening his respect, every tremble tightening his protection. Evelyn stood and stepped back. The chief understood. With a single motion, swift and final, Eldrick was no longer a threat. The forest fell silent. The storm stopped. The torches flickered weakly in the dying wind. It was over. Truly over. The mercenaries fled. The Ironwood warriors gathered their wounded. Snow buried the last traces of the fight. But Evelyn couldn't move. She stared at the place where Eldrick had fallen, her breath shallow, mind spinning. The chief approached slowly, careful, respectful, giving her space. "You're safe," he said softly. She shook her head. "Safe? Feels strange." He nodded. "I know the feeling." A moment passed between them, quiet, warm, fragile. Then he held out his hand. "Come," he said. "Let me take you home." Evelyn blinked, tears filling her eyes. I don't have one." The chief stepped closer, his voice low and honest. "You do now." Her breath stuttered. She placed her hand in his, hesitant but willing. His fingers closed around hers gently, like something precious. Together, they walked back toward the firelit camp. Warriors nodded as they passed, not with pity, but with recognition, strength respecting strength. Halfway there, Evelyn whispered, "Why me? You barely know who I am." The chief looked at her, eyes softening in a way that made her heart ache. "I know what you are," he said. "A woman who chose her own life. A woman who refused to die for a man's pride. A woman brave enough to run into the unknown, and brave enough to fight when the unknown tried to swallow her." He paused. "And if you choose to stay, I will walk beside you, not ahead of you. You've had enough of men who take. It's time you knew someone who gives." Evelyn's throat tightened, not from fear, from relief, from hope. She squeezed his hand just slightly. He felt it, and his breath trembled. As dawn broke over the valley, melting the last of the snow, Evelyn finally understood. She had not run into the camp of the enemy. She had run into the place where she was meant to heal, into the arms of a man she never expected, into a future she never believed she deserved. And, for the first time in her life, she didn't look back. She didn't have to. The danger was gone. But the story, her story, was just beginning.